You wanted the best. You've got the best podcast, the hottest podcast in the world. The Chris Voss Show, the preeminent podcast with guests so smart you may experience serious brain bleed. The CEOs, authors, thought leaders, visionaries, and motivators. Get ready. Strap yourself in. Keep your hands, arms, and legs inside the vehicle at all times, because you're about to go on a monster education roller coaster with your brain. Now, here's your host, Chris Voss.
Hi, folks. Chris Voss here from thechrisvossshow.com, thechrisvossshow.com. Is there ever a time after 14 years I can quit doing that for you people? Like, I'd pay money for that. Anyway, guys, thanks for always running up to me at shows or wherever I'm in public and screaming at me, the Chris Voss Show! And then I'm like, security. But we love you. We love our audience. We love you guys so much. There's no other podcast host that loves you as much as I do. Like, if I could, I would come to all of your homes and hug you. I'd have to have you sign a written thing that says it would be legal for me to hug you, but I would hug you because I love my audience. Without you guys, it's just me sitting here talking to a mic, and that would be a really bad 14 years. 1,400 episodes, we're almost to that. And in August, we turned 14 years old. What more do you want from me, people? We're doing 2 to 3 shows a day, so make sure you refer the show to your family, friends, and relatives. Tell them to go to the goodreads.com/Chris Voss. What a wonderful place. You can read all sorts of different books, and people who love books go there and just swim in the literacy. That's what we do here on the Chris Voss Show. We swim in the literacy. That's not a thing. Pools of books. I don't know, whatever. It's an analogy. It's the ramble. It's random every time. We never know where it's going. Not even I know where it's going until it starts. So it's just a ramble from a madman across the water. Go to youtube.com/Chris Voss. Go to linkedin.com/Chris Voss. Subscribe to the big LinkedIn newsletter. It's pretty cool, and it's growing. It's like a weed. It grows on its own, except it's a weed for smart people. Anyway, guys, we have another amazing author and novelist on the show. He's got an amazing new book. He's a multi-book author, I should plug as well. We'll talk about him and his books. He is the author of the newest book that's just barely came out. Let's see, was it 2 days ago?
Yesterday.
One day ago. Murder for Liar. It just came out on paperback on May 15th, 2023. Verlin Darrow is on the show with us today. He's going to be talking to this amazing new book and what went into it and some of his other books that he's taken and done. He's an amazing gentleman, and we were talking before the show. He's got an interesting bio. Verlin Darrow is currently a psychotherapist who lives with his psychotherapist wife in La Selva Beach, California. They diagnose each other as necessary. I thought it was kind of funny. We were talking before the show about how him and his wife were both psychotherapists and how that works out. And evidently they found a way to work it out. He is a former professional volleyball player in Italy. Country Western singer and songwriter, import store owner, NCAA coach, sheet metal worker, newspaper columnist, taxi driver, and night janitor. Wow. He's like the jack of all trades, and now he's an author. So there you go. He joins us today on the Chris Voss Show. Welcome to the show, Verlin. How are you?
Thanks. I'm doing well this morning. I appreciate being here.
There you go. You've done quite the tour of duty on careers there.
Yeah, I just kept trying to find something that worked, and sometimes things worked for a little while, and then they wouldn't work, and then I had to graduate myself out of it and try something else. And when you say jack of all trades, that implies I was good at all those things, and I certainly wasn't.
Well, that's the thing we do in life. We try on different things and we see what sticks with us. Why did psychotherapy become your the thing that you stuck with?
Well, there's kind of an odd answer to that. I was kind of an assistant guru in a small cult, believe it or not. And,
really?
Yeah, really. And
that wasn't in your bio.
Well, it's in the longer bio, but I didn't want to
crap.
turn people off immediately because cult
okay.
has such a negative association. It was actually a benign outfit where everybody was helped quite a bit, except for one person who was definitely anti-helped.
Wow.
But anyway, I just followed orders, and he assigned me to start an import store in another town, and so I did with a partner. And after about a year, she begged out and said, "I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to be with you anymore. The hell with you," basically. And he came and said, "Do you want to keep doing this on your own?" And I said, "No, I never wanted to do it. You just made me." And he said, "Oh, well, that's what I thought. Why don't you go to school to be a therapist?"
Oh,
So I
there you
did.
go.
So I did.
There,
I didn't even know what the letter stood for.
the PhD.
Well, in this case, it's something called LMFT, but it
Oh,
had different letters back then. It was I don't remember, and it had C and C in the name, I think, for child and couples or something. So I was there about 2 weeks. So I couldn't very well ask because everybody else had been a psychology major and was, had planned this career carefully. I had to talk my way into it. I called the dean up and said, when's the next session start? And he said, basically, a week from Tuesday. And
mm.
I said, oh, well, I guess I'll have to wait till it comes around again or whatever. And he said, oh, why don't you come in and talk to me? So on Sunday, I was told to be a therapist. On Thursday, I talked to the dean and he said you could get in. And then the following Tuesday, I'm in school to be a therapist. So I don't think
Wow.
that's the usual story.
Well, there you go. Well, you seem to have made it work, and you're married to a psychotherapist. I would probably pay to see those arguments. Can we get that on Netflix or something?
I don't know if they're a whole lot better than anybody else's, but
Oh,
thanks.
okay. All right. So, do you still say "happy wife, happy life" like most married guys?
No, I've never heard that phrase. That's not true.
Oh,
I don't apply that phrase, but you know what? I'm always happier when I'm married. I
no,
like being
it's
married.
good. I have a lot of married friends that say "happy wife, happy life," and I argue with them about that
Well,
context. But
I am sort of devoted to trying to make my wife happy,
sure,
but not just so
yeah,
that she doesn't give me grief, just because what the hell is there to do that's any better
yeah.
than that?
I mean, yeah, it's as long as it's not a threat. So give us a .com so people could find you on the interwebs.
I'm Verlin Darrow at, not at anything, I'm verlindarrow.com. Yeah,
There
there
you
you go.
go.
I was thinking of my email address, which is fine too. That's in all the stuff online about me. If anybody wants to email me, I'm fine with that.
There you go. So you've written total of 4 books now.
Yep. Yep. Just keep churning them out.
There you go. And all novels, I guess. Is it? Are they different standalone novels, or
Yeah,
are
they
they?
they are. They're all standalone. They're a little different. The first one was a private investigator mystery.
Mhm.
Takes place outside Santa Cruz, California, in a retreat center. The second one's a really wild fantasy thriller, taking a bunch of spiritual stuff and exaggerating in a crazy kind of all around the world manner. And the third one's about a 10-year-old child prodigy who goes seeking a book of wisdom.
Hmm.
And then there's this one, which, of course, I'll talk about more here.
There you go. Murder for Liar. So give us a 30,000-foot overview of the new book.
Sure. There's a psychotherapist, kind of a screwed up guy, a little bit like me when I was younger before I started getting any sense around any of this. And he has a really bizarre character come in as a client who's telling him a bunch of crazy stuff about who he is. And he's not really just a psychotherapist and a bunch of stuff. And it turns out he gets drawn into a series of murders and he has to investigate, as it were, just to keep his sanity because so much crazy stuff is happening in terms of coincidences and people that are doing and saying things that don't make logical sense. He has to keep kind of trying to expand his mind to make sense out of it. And he never knows what's real and he worries whether he's going crazy. But like most books, it works out in the end.
Nice. That is pretty awesome. And so, what made you? What is the title "Murder for Liar" based on?
I just like clever titles, and
Ah,
typically I go for two words that are kind of juxtaposed, like blood and wisdom, or
mm,
coattail karma, where they make people think a little bit about, hey, what's the relationship between these words? Maybe I interest them there, but I couldn't think of anything for this one. So then I started thinking about sort of cutesy little paraphrases that would stick in someone's mind, and of course, there's murder for hire as a
mm.
little phrase that goes way back. So I started playing with hire. I came up with liar. It's not very good grammar, and it's not really a straight mystery book per se, even though it has murder in the title. It's more psychological thriller, psychological suspense. But what I've learned from titles and covers is they're just to get people to start reading it, and then once they do, I don't think too many people resent the fact that the title wasn't exactly on the mark.
Ah, there you go. Murder, you say. So there's murder involved, huh?
And there are murders, and there are people lying. So,
Well, that's something people do, I hear.
oh yeah,
Lots of.
even
Is there a lot of murdering, or is there a murder and then do we have a protagonist that has to solve everything?
there's I don't know, 4 or 5 murders. They all kind of happen in the background, although
Mhm.
there are some physically threatening, dangerous situations that the protagonist goes through. Um, it's not the kind of thing like I don't know, the amateur sleuth lady who goes out of her driveway and finds a body that her neighbor fell into the rose bush, and now she has to sort it out at this kind of personal, individual kind of level. It's much more like there's some sort of conspiracy of events being orchestrated that's connected with all this that he's getting jived around from.
There you go. There you go. And so tell us more about the protagonists. What sort of character are they?
Well, he's a great big guy.
Hmm.
He's pretty isolated and alienated. He'd been in a bad accident, and he has burns on his face. And following that, he's just sort of given up on life in the sense of expecting much good stuff to happen. He just plods along being a therapist. He's not necessarily bad at it. And we're up in his head, seeing the way that he thinks as he's trying to help people and as he's trying to sort out. And I think that part's pretty realistic. This is the way that character, as a therapist, would think about things, as far as I can tell, anyway. Once again, projecting my younger self into my older self's body. And he's sort of ripe for something to come along for him to grab onto and get going with. And he's also kind of vulnerable because in many respects he has a lot of needs that aren't getting met. So if you want to run a conspiracy with somebody like this, you got some vulnerable points to work,
Hmm.
And
And
he's smart. He's
mhm.
smart, and he's this is ironic. I'm trying to find the word for being articulate. There you go.
There we go. There we go. I do that
That
all
should
the
not be
time.
that should not be a word you go hunting for, though. It belies the very meaning of it.
Yeah, well, it takes some extra thought to be smart or intelligent
Yeah.
or
Oh, he's
knowledgeable.
stuck up in his head. That's really his main problem, actually.
Ah,
He's
well,
way stuck up in his head, and he's not in direct connection, having direct experience with the world, which is a depressing kind of place to be.
there you go. So there's a serial killer running around town. People tend to like these sort of thrillers. I think because
Absolutely. At
they
least I'm not giving too much away. I'll just say at least one.
there you go. There you go. And so a lot of different things that go through the book. We of course can never give away the middle and what did you find excited you about this story or what was some of the research you did and to develop it?
Well, going back to my cult days, I actually had some similar experiences to what he had,
Oh,
where
really?
someone approached him that seemed to have sort of powers or extra special stuff, or was charismatic, just, some stuff that you couldn't really ignore. And I
Mhm.
was locked in a very logical box where that's all there is to life. And there's nothing behind the scenes. And, why would I go be a spiritual seeker or read a Buddhist book or whatever?
Yeah.
And then I got approached and somebody was telling me, hey, you're special. Hey, you're more than a regular person. Hey, you're this. Hey, you're that. And drawing me into this situation where I was sort of the first disciple and somewhat the Judas goat to draw the other people in because I was a nice guy. And if I was a nice guy connected to him, then maybe that made it okay for other people to go connect with him or whatever. So anyway, it was kind of healing because I wrote this from the perspective to some degree of trying to work out all the leftover stuff associated with that. It takes a couple of years after you go through something like that to sort of get back to feeling centered.
Yeah. And so it sounds like kind of a lot of your experience as a psychotherapist you intertwine in the book and the character.
Yeah, yeah. I really tried, despite the intensity and kind of extreme circumstances of the book. I try and write it from the point of view of how would a regular person deal with all these extraordinary circumstances? So the one going through them does not necessarily have any kind of it's not every man in the sense that most people are giant and depressed with burn scars, but it's every man in the sense that here's how I would react if this happened to me.
Mhm.
Here's how I would react if that happened to me. I mean, I don't really identify with the character. He doesn't speak for me. He says a lot of stupid shit I would never say. But at the same time, the way he reacts to things, I feel like I know about that stuff. That's it. It feels
Mhm.
like sort of a rarefied topic to have lived through and be able to write through.
There you go. There you go. How much of did you include any characters that you knew, or maybe use Hollywood characters as a reference point, or how did you come up with the characters and develop them?
Um, they were pretty invented. Some of them, there are some sessions in therapy, and some of those people are sort of amalgams of various people I've worked
There
with.
you
But
go.
for the most part, they invented themselves. Actually, is a better way to say it. I start with
Mhm.
like one idea, and then sort of one idea for who this character is going to be in the book, And then each time somebody says something to them, I find out, well, what would a character like that say back? Because it just falls out of me. I don't really plan a lot around the character stuff. When I'd like to have a better answer for that, in the sense of, oh, I was picturing Nick Nolte in this role, or that here's my sister playing the sidekick, but there really isn't any of that for me.
Yeah. I imagine being a psychotherapist, you have so many different characters and people that come around you in
Well,
different scenarios.
I've certainly worked with a lot of extreme situations and wild people. In my younger days, I worked in a few kind of fairly intense settings, and I took on all comers as a private practice person. So I would get the people where other therapists would turn them down because I wouldn't say they're too crazy, but they were too challenging to deal with in the room, maybe because of personality disorders. And then later, I worked in some institutional settings where, HMOs and that kind of thing, where I got a great diversity of ethnicities. And, I mean, who signs up for an HMO? It's often higher functioning people, but they still have a lot of problems, just different ones. So between that and all the different careers I had before, I feel like I've had exposure to just a ton of different kinds of people, and maybe more understanding about them than most, because I had to figure them out to try and help them in the room.
Yeah. It's like, why are you so screwed up? That's pretty much what my
Pretty much.
psychotherapist says to me every week. And then he
Pretty,
says,
pretty much the bottom line, but asking it as a why doesn't tend to get you anywhere.
that's true. He keeps trying to get me to get that lobotomy scheduled. And I think
I
it's
can
next week.
understand that. For most of my life, I figured I'd be better off with one too.
Yeah. I mean, it certainly would, I mean, I drew out the side of my face anyway, so I might as well just finish the job.
Good thinking.
There's that. Well, anything more you want to tease out in the book before we go, and that we haven't touched on?
Well, sure. I just want to reiterate that, it is a suspense novel, and the idea is that you want to keep turning the pages.
Mm-hmm.
So far, I've had 2 professional reviews come out, Seattle Book Review and some site online that's supposed to be pretty good, but I never heard of. And they both said they had trouble putting the book down, and they were really looking forward to finding out what happened next. And that's because sort of everything that happens is a mini mystery. It can't really be figured out until you get a little further down the book. And then there's another mystery, and that can't be figured out. It's not like there's one fell swoop mystery that we're working towards gradually. It's things keep happening out of the blue that are just weird, that the guy can't make sense of, and the reader is along for the ride, so they're confused and they can't make sense out of it, but not at an uncomfortable level, hopefully. So the bottom line is it's fun to read. It has a lot of ideas embedded in it. At this point, I'm sort of a secular Buddhist, having been through my other kind of experience where I just see the world in terms of we're all in this together, and the bottom line is kindness, and that's a lens that informs me as the writer, not so much the characters per se, but it's back there. So I'm weaving in, as this character is having to go to advisors and stuff to figure out what to do and to see his own therapist. I'm weaving in my idea of wisdom and suggestions coming from all the things I've learned. So I think it has more substance at an ideal level than a lot of these kinds of books. It's not purely a thriller where, at the end of it, you feel kind of like, well, that was great. It was sort of like eating a piece of candy and it tasted great, and now the candy's out of my mouth, so to hell with it. Hopefully some of it'll stick to people's ribs. That's my goal anyway. I always try to embed a lot of ideas in the books.
There you go. Well, it's definitely interesting from the depths of it all, and there's so much you can learn about all of this. It's interesting how we learn life through stories and stuff and everything that goes into it. Anything more you want to tease out before we go?
Well, just in response to that, I also think that people understand themselves in terms of stories. I have a story about what my childhood was. I have a story about how my second marriage turned out. And I tell myself that story and I kind of settle on it without recognizing there are alternate stories I could be creating that work better for me. There are more accurate stories. There are more updated stories. And a lot of therapy sometimes is just getting people to rewrite the stories that they've gotten kind of stuck with that don't actually work for them very well. I could sit here and think, oh gosh, I'm such a doofy looking guy. Maybe that was something I decided when I was 14 or whatever. If I keep thinking that through my life, I'm going to be really self-conscious trying to do an interview like this. And instead of that, how about a story of doesn't matter that much what I look like anymore? Kind of covers all the bases, even if I am doofy looking.
Yeah, and I'm not agreeing with you. You're goofy looking, by the way. I was saying yes to what you said. The I always joke with people when I'll tell fat jokes, a million fat jokes, and people be like, yeah, and I'm like, well, you didn't have to agree with me.
Yeah, yeah,
But I know I'm kind of a little overweight there. I had one too many burgers, but it's interesting to me how we learn through stories and how that's
hmm
kind of our operating owner's manual. And I think
yeah,
my audience has heard me talk about that ad nauseum, so I'll leave it at that. But yeah, it's. I mean, if without my stories, I don't know who I'd be. I'd just be like, hey, I'm some dude, some fat guy.
yeah. And there wouldn't be books to read. It's wonderful reading books,
That's
And
true. It is.
if the story doesn't carry it, I usually lose interest. I mean, I can only tolerate so much description, so much backstory, so much character development, so much musing out loud from people's heads. I need a plot that grabs me, and I like the plots that are driven by dialogue, which is kind of the thing I'm best at too. A dialogue that
Right.
really sounds natural and surprising and funny, and once again, the stories the bottom line with a book is I don't read nonfiction because it doesn't really have stories.
That's true. That's true. Some people don't get nonfiction, and of course, some of the nonfiction has good stories too, especially if you read like political science and crap that goes on.
Well, that's true, but it's limited to reality,
That's
in
true.
writing fiction on the next page, you can put anything in there you want that serves the story. And some real life stories unfold as though they're a book, and they may be even better than what you could come with in a book. But others have these, I don't know. That's just me. I mean, everybody reads what they read and don't read what they don't read.
There you go. There you go. Well, this has been wonderful to have you on. Very insightful, and I thought it was kind of interesting because you've got a wife who's a psychotherapist. You're a psychotherapist. It sounds like you guys have made it work.
Well, we have, and
Yeah.
part of that is just being armed with the various tools. I think what makes that challenging, I know you're kind of wrapping up, but what makes it challenging, I think, for anyone is once you get triggered and somebody says something that's one of your buttons, you go
Uh-huh.
into kind of an altered state where you don't have your normal toolkit and you do a lot of sort of fast reacting kind of stuff. We still get into that, even though we can sit there ahead of time and make a list of what's the best way to respond if somebody triggers you. It's just like, boom, boom, you're out there. Now, hopefully, you can catch it before it keeps going down the line too far, and that
Oh
saves a
yeah.
lot of trouble. Is
Otherwise,
just
there's
catching
murder.
things early. Yeah, you
Otherwise,
got to
there's
head things
murder if
off
you
at the
get too far
pass.
down the line.
Yeah. It just keeps getting bigger and bigger. You got to try and catch it early. But I don't know of anybody that doesn't still have some triggers that doesn't still get into a mode that's sort of not as good as they could do, whether they're a
Yeah.
therapist or anybody.
I don't
So
think I'd survive a psychotherapist on psychotherapist relationship because anytime she'd get upset with me, I'd pull out a little notepad and be like, "How long you been feeling this way?
yeah,
What was your
exactly.
relationship with your mother?" And
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but how do you feel?
but
I'll
how
tell
do
you,
you
when I
feel?
try how do you feel with my wife, that doesn't work at all because she
She
thinks
knows
that
you're
she's already
psychoanalyzing her.
well, no, she thinks she's already implied how she feels, even though
Oh,
she hasn't said it, and I'm
oh,
supposed to
you haven't
know.
listened.
And a
But
lot of people do that. They expect sort of at least this mild kind of form of my mind reading where you did something that upset me. You must know what you did because you did it. So how much do I have to go into explaining a whole bunch of stuff to you? I just
yeah.
want you to hear that that's no good. Stop doing it.
Do you ever
I don't
say,
know if I can
"Stop
let.
psychoanalyzing me. I'm not your client"? Do you ever get
She
that?
has said that to me because I've done it. I've never had to say it to her. I don't know now if I should let her see this interview. I mean, here
Probably
I
not.
am
I mean,
talking
she's a
trash
wonderful
about us.
person, I'm sure.
She
Uh,
absolutely is. I'm very
yeah.
happy.
I mean, I just like playing on married people's dynamics. I've never been able to afford the divorces, so I'm still saving up millions of dollars. And once I do, then I'll get married. But I just never got tired of being happy. What can I say? Uh,
Yeah. Yeah.
I do a lot of marriage jokes because I'm single. But no, it's great that you guys have made it work. See, one of my problems too is if I ever got in an argument as a psychotherapist versus psychotherapist, after like an hour, I'd be like, "I'm sorry, but our hour's up. I'll have to see you next week on whatever this is
Yeah.
about the
Yeah. That
socks
that
and
would
on the floor or whatever, or the
it would
dishes."
certainly be fun. It would certainly be funny for any onlookers, but I'll tell you how it would not work with your partner.
I would pay to see the arguments. I think this is something that should be on like Netflix or like one of these shows, these reality shows.
There are a fair amount of therapist combinations because
Are
you
they
get
really?
kind of spoiled. You want somebody who feels like a peer around, communication and therapy and relationship stuff, and you don't want to have to sort of teach somebody how to do it when I used to run relationship groups. I used to run
Yeah.
communication groups. It's like, for years, if you feel like you're an expert about something, your other partner is always going to feel in a one down position because actually they are.
Maybe I should go to school for psychotherapy. Note to
It,
self.
it could help.
It probably could help, but it probably mostly I just find everything wrong with me. And
Oh yeah, that happens too. When you
we
get
already
in
know what all
abnormal,
those problems are. Even my audience
when you
is like, this guy's crazy.
when you get in abnormal psych classes, all of a sudden you have every diagnosis. You just start reading them all and thinking, "Oh, that's me. That's me. That's me."
That's
It's like
me.
in medical school. I think it's the same thing with illnesses. I don't know, but that wears off after a while.
I just accept the fact that I'm psychotic and there's a lot of voices in the head. And the judge says as long as they stay away from the one that says kill, 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 uh, my parole will go fine. No, I'm just kidding. That's a joke, people. I always tell. Everyone knows that joke. So anyway, thank you very much for coming on the show.
Sure.
We really appreciate
Thanks for
it.
having
You
me.
see how I kept everything in that murder theme? See there? That's the callback
You kind of
we're
did,
doing through the
and
whole
I
show.
appreciate that you're easier to talk to, and you're not
Thank you.
fussing, but you're just acting natural. I mean, not everybody's like that behind a mic. I like it.
Yeah. Well, we have fun. We do what's called info entertainment. So we inform people, educate them, make them know more stuff, give them great stories, give them brilliant authors, and in the end, hopefully they laugh their ass off and enjoy it more. Because when it's boring, it's not that interesting. That's just the way it works. So there
Yeah,
you go.
I'm with you.
Verlin, give us your .com so people can find you on the interwebs, please.
Sure. It's just verlindarrow.com with low letters. And, I'm on Amazon and I'm there and I'm here and I'm there. And if you Google me, there's a bunch of stuff. So it's not that hard to find out more if you want to find out more.
There you go. Thank you very much for coming on the show, sir.
You bet. Thanks for having me. Do you
There
press
you
the
go.
button to end it or do I?
Give us 1 second to wrap. Thanks
Okay.
to my audience for tuning in as well. Go to goodreads.com/Chris Foss, youtube.com/Chris Foss, and linkedin.com/Chris Foss. See the new AI podcast and leadership podcast over at chrisfossleadership.com. Thanks for tuning in. Be good to each other. Stay safe. We'll see you guys next time. And that's